and other small aggregates will be there. So that we have to separate from the broth. That is the first step. So there are various strategies for that, which we have discussed in the previous class itself. And like it can be like flocculation, flotation, or it can be the centrifugation, or it can be the filtration, or even we can use the conventional sedimentation technique also for the separation of liquid and the salt. Now, as I mentioned, there are various methods. What method we will be choosing, it will be dependent upon what type of organisms you want to separate, what type and what is their morphology. Based upon that, we can choose a particular method for the separation. And we will also need to consider the other parameters like the specific gravity of the solid particle and even the viscosity of the fermented medium. See, if viscosity is more, then it will be showing a resistance, is it? Similarly, the rheology, it is nothing but the property of any liquid to flow through. And it also talks about the deformation that happens when it is flowing through some of the pipes. So that is, we call it as the rheology and the viscosity. So these two aspects also need to be considered when we are discussing about the separation of the cells as well as the liquid part. So as I mentioned, there are various methods for the separation of liquid and solid, which include the flocculation as one method, flotation and another method, filtration and centrifugation. So these are the four common methods that we are normally going to discuss in the coming classes. And in today's class, we will be trying to concentrate on two, but I don't think the time will be permitting to discuss both the techniques. So we will discuss about the flotation today, and the flocculation we will discuss in the next class. So first aspect what we are going to concentrate is on the flotation technique. So moving on to the flotation, it's a very old technique. In 1980s, the flotation technique, the air flotation technique was being used for the clarification of fruit juices, especially in the wine production, the wine industries, the alcoholic beverage production. The first step is after pressing, you might have done the production of wine, is it, from the grape juices. So what is the first step is you will be pressing the wine, is it? I mean, you will be pressing the grape. So when you are pressing the grape pulp will be coming out, which include the skin, the pulp, even the debris, the different debris will be there, even the seeds will be there. So the first step is you need to clarify your, what you call it as the juice, is it? So for that, conventionally what they used to do is they will be doing the sedimentation as a process. But to accelerate, it will take long time. The other alternative technique are, one is the cold treatment. So if you keep the juice in cold condition, maybe around 2 to 4 degrees, then you will be able to see that the sedimentation will be accelerated. Maybe you might have seen, especially when you prepare the juice in a mixer and if you keep it in the fridge, you can see that there will be a separation into two layers, is it? In the bottom part, there will be a sedimentation and the top, you will be getting a clarified juice. So similarly, that technique was used in the wine production also. And another alternative technique is the flotation. In flotation, what we are doing is we are allowing the air to sparge through the sparger. So it will be generating the fine air bubbles. So these air bubbles, it will be lifting all these solid particles to the surface of the liquid. And it will be forming a foam or froth will be called. So this foam or the froth, we can, skim it away. So using a skimmer, we can skim it away and you can break it. Where you can see here, you can break it. You can break the foams or the skims. We can break it off. So this is a very old technique which was used for the clarification of the fruit juices, especially in the wine production. And even this flotation, it is used in the wastewater treatment to remove the solid. And even it is used for the ore extraction. okay, which we call it as the froth flotation technique, especially in the ore extraction technique. When the flotation is being exploited, we call it as a froth flotation. So the basic principle of the flotation depends upon the ability of the cell to raise to the surface and it to be collected. So it depends upon the buoyancy of the cell. That is one kind of principle that is affecting the flotation process. The ability of the cell to float. Buoyancy is nothing but the ability to float, is it? All of you know that buoyancy is nothing but the ability to float. So the ability to float will be a. Similarly, the another parameter is depending upon the wettability of the molecule, the different particles will be get separated. So as I mentioned, the flotation, it is also called as the foam separation, and it is an adsorptive bubble separation technique. This is a simple definition what you can give for the flotation. It is an adsorptive bubble separation technique. So what is happening here, from this image you will be able to see, you have your fruit juice. You can just imagine you have your fruit juice, or you have your fermented broth here. So to the fermented broth, you are sparking the air. So when you are sparking the air, it can be the atmospheric air, or it can be an inert gas like nitrogen, or it can be like a carbon dioxide you are sparking. And when the fine bubbles, the small bubbles, when it is rising up in the column, what happens is the adsorption of materials will be taking place. In the coming slide, we will discuss what kind of material will be getting adsorbed to the surface of the rising bubble. And whatever particles which are adsorbed to the surface of the rising bubble, what will happen? They will be taken up to the column and they will aggregate at the surface of the liquid. And this layer, we will be calling it as a froth layer or the foam layer. As we have seen in the previous image, this foam or the froth, it can be removed with a skimmer, or it can be removed with any other mechanical method, or it can be again removed with the help of the air pressure and separated. So what will happen here? The separation of the liquid as well as the solid will be happening. So during this process, during the process of bubbling, so we are artificially creating the bubbling here. So what will happen is some of the cell will have an ability to adsorb to the foam and they will be floating to the surface for collection. As I mentioned, one particular example, what you can see here is the clarification and stabilization of the wine. So here we are not separating the cells, but what we are doing is we are removing all the sediments, maybe like, the seeds or maybe the skin of the hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So maybe we'll be removing the skin of grapes. So all those things we'll be doing here. So coming to the more details about the flotation. Here, the particles whose density is lower than the liquid are mainly removed. So I told you it is a solid liquid separation, or even we can use it as a technique for removing the liquid. So in two ways they are using it. It is used as a technique for the removal of solid and liquid, or liquid and liquid separation, which is applied to particles whose densities are lower than that of the liquid where they are in. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it is mainly based upon the different surface wettability property of a material. So when we talk about what is this surface wettability, you can take an example where maybe imagine that you have a slide. On the slide, you are keeping different types of materials. Maybe you are putting a drop of water. Similarly, you are putting a drop of, imagine you have oil, coconut oil is there that you are putting. Similarly, you take one more oil maybe, or you put the ghee into that. the way it will be appearing on the slide, it will be different. Some will be in the form of a globule, some will be in the form of a hemisphere, some it will be maybe if you take the water, it will be like a flat surface because it has more wettability. So the wettability property of the material will be different. It is because they have an ability to adsorb to the surface differently. So when we are doing this flotation process, when the air bubbles are being generated, what happens is the hydrophobic particles, they will attach to the air bubbles and they will be floating. And the hydrophilic, they will remain in the aqueous solution. So in another sense to say about the ability of flotation is, the flotation will be helping you for the separation of hydrophilic and hydrophobic particles, where the hydrophobic particles will be attached to the surface of the bubble and they will be rising along with the bubbles and they float and they reach to the surface of the liquid. And generally, you can say that when you are using flotation as a technique for removal of solid and liquid, we can efficiently remove particles which are in this particular range, that is, which are in the range of 10 to 200 micrometer in size. So this is a schematic which is representing what kind of molecules are being normally separated when you are doing the bubbling process. So here you can see these are the air bubbles, and you can see there are two types of particles. One is, this is the hydrophobic particles, and the colorless is the hydrophilic particles. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, the hydrophobic particles will be getting adsorbed to the surface of the bubble. And what will happen? They will float. They will be rising to the surface of the column and they will float. But at the same time, the hydrophilic, they will remain in the suspended form. They will be remaining in the broth. So the hydrophilic will remain in the suspension, but the hydrophobic particle will be attaching to the surface of the bubble, air bubble, and they will be rising up to the column. So this is what is happening when we are doing the air flotation process. So this is a schematic which is indicating the air flotation. So as I mentioned, in air flotation, what we require is, we require a source of gas bubbles. So how we can generate that? So we require a flotation pump is required here. So a flotation pump is required. So we will be having an air pump which will be sparging the air. Normally in the case of fermenter also we are using the sparges. So sparges will have narrow orifices. So when the pressurized air moves through the sparges, the nozzles of the sparges, it will be generating tiny air bubbles. Why we are talking about the tiny air bubbles? When the size of bubble is bigger, what will happen? They will burst very fast, is it? Only tiny air bubble can move through the column and it can reach till to the surface. So that is why we am specifically mentioning tiny air bubble, tiny air bubble. So to generate a tiny air bubble, we require a what we call is a narrow orifice is required, whose pore size may be averagely around 10 micrometer in size. And here you can see a rotameter. Rotameter will be allowing the flow rate. It will be helping to regulate the flow rate. So we will have an air pump, and you also require, if you are using a atmospheric air, surely you remember atmospheric air will have different other particles associated with it. It will have the microorganisms also, which will contaminate. Is it? So what we need to do, we need to use a filter to sterilize it. So through a filter, which will be helping to sterilize the air, and then it will be moving through a rotameter where the flow rate, the velocity of the air can be regulated, and which will be flowing through a narrow orifice, which can be a sparger, and then what will happen? The tiny air bubbles will be formed. So as the tiny air bubbles are moving, what will happen? You can see here the small particles are there, which can be the cells or it can be any other solids. So they will be moving along with they will be getting adsorbed to the surface of the air bubble, and they will be moving along with the column, and it will be reaching to the foam layer, and this foam will be collected. So this foam layer can be skimmed and we can collect. In industry level, if you see, there are different techniques of flotation you will be able to see. So the three main categories of flotation equipments are, one is driven with a mechanical power. We call it as a mechanical flotation or the float flotation. So here it is a very simple instrumentation which will have an agitator which is combined with a air injection system will be there. So you have an agitator. What is the role of agitator? Agitator will be helping in mixing, is it? Agitator will be helping in mixing of the entire broth. So uniform distribution of the content will be possible with the help of an agitator. Agitation will be with the help of a motor, where there will be a motor either in the bottom or the top of the tank which will be doing it. I don't know whether you have seen in my lab, there is one fermenter. In that also, this kind of agitator is there, which is installed on the top of the machine, which will be helping in the rotation of the agitator. Now, similarly, you can also see that this agitator shaft is it is a pipe. It is a tubing actually, through which we can also give the supply of the sterilized air. So this sterilized air will be coming, and it will be coming out through the bottom. At the bottom, you will be able to see that there are sparges that is present. Through the sparges, it is coming. They are coming in the form of a bubble. When they are coming out of the sparger, it will be in the form of a narrow bubbles, and they are coming out. So the bubble size, in the case of mechanical flotation, that we can create a bubble which are in the range of 0.2 to 2 millimeter in diameter. And another technique is vacuum flotation. So how the vacuum flotation works is, it is induced by subjecting the suspension to a vacuum. So as the name indicates, inside we will be creating a vacuum, or by saturating the water with the gas under pressure. In that way also we can operate the vacuum flotation and injecting it into the suspension. So this is how the vacuum flotation will be working. So when you are working with the vacuum flotation, the bubble size will be in the range of 40 to 70 millimeter in diameter. And another interesting technique is electroflotation. So electroflotation is another technique where we will be doing the electrolysis of the aqueous phase to produce the bubbles, and which will be normally, the bubble will be normally lesser than 50 micrometer in size, and this will be generated with minimal turbulence. So these are the three main techniques that we can use for the purpose of flotation. You can see the reference. If you want to read more about these three techniques, you can go to this particular site and you can read on more about it. So this is a general method of flotation, what we have already discussed. So the what kind of materials we can separate using flotation? You can separate the whole cells, or you can separate the proteins, or you can separate the colloidal particles, which will be selectively adsorbed to the surface of the gas bubble, which will be rising through the liquid and to be concentrated or separated and finally removed by the skimming. So this is a kind of summary for the flotation, how it works and what kind of material we can separate using the flotation process. But to make the flotation more effective, what we need to do is we may have to add the surfactants. The surfactants are the material which will be making the surface active. So we need to incorporate the forming agents. Okay, forming agent which are called as the surfactants. So the forming requires the addition of surfactants to generate relatively stable form or flow. So what kind of materials can be used as surfactants we'll be discussing in the next slide. So normally surfactants are the amphiphilic compounds. We know that amphiphilic compounds, how it will be behaving. They will have both hydrophilic and the hydrophobic regions in it. Is it? And what they will be doing is they will be lowering the surface tension between the two liquids or between the liquid and the solid. And they will be acting as a forming agent. It is nothing but the soap. It will be behaving like a soap solution, isn't it? But whatever surfactants we are going to use here should not chemically reacting with our fermented broth. If it is reacting with the fermented broth, we cannot use it. So normally in the fermentation, we will try to avoid the use of surfactants because many of the surfactants later will be a contaminant. Later will be a contaminant in the fermentation broth. But there are various reports where you can see various surfactants are being tried for the separation of the cells, which include the lauric acid, the stearic amide, or the trioctyl amide. So like that way, different surfactants are being tried. We will move on to another slide, which will be talking more about the surfactants, where you can see the surfactants as the bubble surface modifiers in flotation of algae. The dissolved air flotation is the technique what they have used here. So this research article will be giving more insight about the use of surfactants, where they have used it for the separation of the flotation of the algae. So whenever the algal bloom is been taking place, even we can use the flotation as a technique to remove the algal bloom and to purify the water. So in this method, they have used the different types of surfactants. So here they classified the surfactants into three different categories. One is the cationic surfactants, another one is the non-ionic surfactants, and anionic surfactants. So three different categories of surfactants are being tried in this research article, and they found that the cationic surfactants are being more it will be giving an optimal removal. That is what they are telling. They are claiming they will be removing the cationic surfactants were optimum for the removal of the microcytic algae. This is a particular algae which we can see commonly whenever there is a algal bloom is being taking place. And this is the range of concentration what they have used. This range of concentration of cationic surfactants were used. So here you can see the different examples of the cationic surfactants. So for example, if you talk about any kind of, maybe you are familiar with the CTAP, is it? CTAP you are familiar with, which can be used for the isolation or extraction of DNA. When you are using CTAP mediated extraction, we can carry it out, which you might have used. Sometimes I am not very familiar whether you have used it. Similarly, you might be familiar about the Triton X100, which is a non-ionic surfactant. Similarly, you have the anionic surfactants also. Now, we can use the flotation in three different ways. Either it has a batch operation we can use, where a particular amount of liquid pool we'll be using, and we are just sparging the air and removing the foam layer. So as a batch operation you can use. Or as a semi-batch operation you can use, like gas will be sparged into a specific amount of broth, and what will happen is the foams will be separated and the foams will be separated as the formate. So you have a formate layer. This layer, foam layer, we will be calling it as a formate. The formate will be collected and it will be ruptured to collect the solid particles. Then it can be used as a continuous manner. When you are using it as a continuous manner, you will be having a column where the gas will be sparge continuously and the formate layer will be removed continuously. At the same time, you can also see that the feed is being pumped into continuously and the solid residues are also removed, or the liquid pool is also being removed. Liquid pool with the residues are also being removed. So this way we can use it as a continuous mode of operation. So in all the three modes we can use the flotation. So the most commonly used are either it as a semi-batch or as a continuous mode you can use. So this is a very interesting image which is being taken from this particular website, which is talking about the flotation in the case of the wine production, the clarification of the juice, the grape juice. So where you can see they are using a tank, the flotation tank they are using. In that case, they will be also using a pump will be there, which will be doing the flotation. So before the treatment, especially when we talk about the grape juice will have the pectin in it. The pectin will be increasing the, what you call the viscosity, it will be increasing. So that is why it will be appearing more viscous. So what they will do is initially to remove the pectin, they will be using the enzyme. That is the pectin is enzyme they will be using. That is the trade name of the enzyme what they have used for the removal of the pectin, which will be degrading the pectin and reducing the viscosity of the fruit juice. And after that, they will be sparging the air, where they are using the different types of air like carbon dioxide. They are using the atmospheric air, or excuse me, they are also using the inert gas like the nitrogen. So different ways are there to use, and they will be clarifying the juice. So this is a kind of schematic which is indicating about the clarification of the fruit juice. Now we will see which are the factors that will be affecting the process of flotation. So these are the factors that will be affecting the process of flotation. One is the hydrophobicity, the solid hydrophobicity. We all know that the solid particles should be hydrophobic, then only they will be coming and attaching to the surface of the rising bubble. So that is the one factor. Then the bubble to particle size ratio, that is an also important, because when the particle size are more than the bubble, then automatically there will be it will not be lifted to the surface. That is also that also need to be taken into the consideration. And the extent of turbulence in the fluid, that also will be affecting the stability of the bubble. So the extent of turbulence also need to be considered. The turbulence is always required, that will be helping in the movement of bubbles to the surface. But when the extent of turbulence is more, what will happen is the bubbles will collide each other and they will break before they reach into the surface. And we also need to incorporate the surfactants, which will be helping in generating the foams. So these are some of the factors that will be affecting the entire process of flotation. Among this, the three major elements that is affecting are: one is the hydrophobicity of the solid, the bubble to particle size ratio, and the extent of turbulence in the fluid. So these are the three main, plus the fourth one, that is the presence of surfactants. So coming to the few advantages, the advantages like we can concentrate the solute, where all the solute particles, that is whether it is the cells or the solid particles, they will be collected, and later what we can do is we can collect it in the form of a formate phase, and we can collapse it to remove the solid and the liquid. And much energy is not required. That is a major advantage, and the operational cost is also very minimum. Only what we require is we require to pump the air. Air pumping is only one cost producing area. But if you are using the atmospheric air, then we may have to think about sterilizing the air, where we need to remove the particles, the other particles and the microbes that is present in the air. That may add up the cost. But if you are using an inert gas, that is not required. And recovering the substance from a highly diluted solution. That is also possible. So from the very diluted solutions, we can concentrate them using this particular single technique of flotation, and even we can use it for the separation of proteins as well as the enzymes. So one particular example of flotation I can give you, we have already discussed about the wine, and this is about the flotation that is used for removal of the biomass. That is the E. coli. So E. coli initial cell concentration before the process, it was around 7.2 into 10 raised to 8 cells per centimeter cube. That was the initial concentration. Now they have used the surfactants like lauric acid, the stearylamine and octylamine, and what they were able to achieve was they were able to achieve 90% of the cells. That is, from this cell density, they were able to remove 90% of cells within 1 minute. So flotation, you can see the efficiency of flotation here. Within 1 minute, 90% removal of solids were able to achieve, and 99% of cells were removed within 10 minutes. So as it is more diluted, it requires more time. That is what we will be able to see from this, is it? So when it becomes more diluted, it may require more time for concentrating the solution. So it's such an amazing technique with low investment and low power consumption. Low technical expertise are required for removal of particles. So this is a research article which is talking about the integration process of fermentation in liquid biphasic flotation. This is another technique, that is the liquid biphasic flotation of lipase separation from the organisms. So you can read more on this article. I just want to show you that it is being used at different level. We were talking about the enzyme purification or the protein purification. In light of that, I just want to show you on paper related to the separation of enzymes and proteins using the flotation technique. They are using a liquid biphasic flotation technique. So I think with this we will summarize today's class. So in today's class we discussed about, yes, it's 9:45. So 5 more minutes are there, but we will stop today because next 5 minutes I won't be able to complete the topic. So we will stop here. So remember, the first step of downstream processing is the liquid solid removal, which can be done with the help of the various techniques, as I mentioned at the beginning, like flocculation, flotation, filtration, or the centrifugation. So in that, we just discussed about the flotation as a technique. And normally, now which path we will be using for the further downstream processing, it will be depending upon the location of the product, where it is present. If your product is present as an intracellular, what you will be collecting? You will be collecting your cells. You will be collecting your cells, and you will be discarding the broth. Vice versa also. If the product is an extracellular, the cells will be a waste. Whatever the solids you are removing, it is a waste. It will be disposed. But you will be processing with the fermented broth. So this, you have to keep it in your mind. You will be proceeding with which path? It will be depending upon the location of the product. Yes. So if you have any doubt, please ask me.